My fiancé said I gave your dog to a shelter. He shed too much and ruined my aesthetic. I was standing at my father's bedside in the hospital watching him fight for his life. I said nothing. I just left the hospital, got my dog back, packed her designer clothes into garbage bags, and dropped them at Goodwill. When she came home to an empty closet and my dog sleeping in her spot, the look on her face was worth every penny of the engagement ring I am never getting back. I am 32, male. I have been engaged to my fiancée for about 8 months. We moved in together a year ago into my townhouse, the one I bought 3 years before we even met. My dog, a golden retriever named Buster whom I have had since he was 8 weeks old, has been with me for 6 years. He was there through my divorce from my first wife. He was there through getting laid off from my first tech job. He was there through the worst anxiety spiral of my life when I couldn't leave the house. That dog isn't a pet. That dog is family. He is the one constant thing in my life that has never let me down. Quick context. I work in IT infrastructure. I make decent money. I own my place outright. No mortgage thanks to a small inheritance from my grandmother that I used for the down payment plus aggressive saving in my 20s. My fiancée works in marketing at a mid-sized firm. She makes okay money, but she has expensive taste. Very expensive taste. When we first started dating, I thought it was cute. She would point out designer bags in store windows. Talk about wanting nice things someday. I figured everyone has aspirations. I figured she just appreciated quality. Red flags in hindsight are always 20/20. Sure. She made comments about my furniture being too masculine or too brown. She once suggested I get rid of my dog's crate because it ruined the flow of the living room. She asked me multiple times if I would consider getting a smaller, hypoallergenic dog because the shedding was out of control. I always said no. My boy wasn't going anywhere. I thought she accepted that. I thought we had an understanding. Anyway, my dad had a massive heart attack last Tuesday. I got the call at 2:00 a.m. from my mom. She was absolutely hysterical. I couldn't understand her at first through the sobbing. When I finally realized what she was saying, my blood ran cold. I threw on clothes. I kenneled my dog. I kissed my fiancée on the forehead and told her I had to go. I drove 3 hours to the hospital in the middle of the night, terrified that I wouldn't make it in time. I asked my fiancée to check on him during the day. Maybe let him out in the backyard a few times. Feed him. Give him some attention. She said, sure, no problem. Go be with your family. For 4 days, I basically lived in that hospital waiting room. It was a fluorescent-lit purgatory. The smell of antiseptic and stale coffee. The beeping of monitors. My dad coded twice in the first 48 hours. I watched through a glass window as doctors did chest compressions on my father. I saw his ribs crack. I held my mom while she sobbed into my shoulder, begging him not to leave her. I barely slept, barely ate, just existed in that state of high adrenaline terror, waiting to find out if my dad was going to live or die. My fiancée called me twice during those 4 days, both times to complain. First call, the dog tracked mud everywhere and I had to clean it up. It is ruining the rug. Second call, he knocked over my coffee table arrangement and broke a vase. He is so clumsy. I apologized both times. I felt guilty. I promised I would deal with it when I got home. I reminded her that my father was literally fighting for his life and I couldn't deal with a broken vase right now. Day 3. She calls again. I answer expecting another complaint or maybe, just maybe, some support. Hey, she said, her voice light and airy. So I finally did it. Did what? I asked, rubbing my eyes. I took him to the shelter. The shedding was ruining my aesthetic, and honestly, I just couldn't take it anymore. You will thank me when you come home to a clean house. It is like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I didn't say anything. I couldn't say anything. My brain just stopped. The sounds of the hospital faded away. Hello. Did you hear me? She asked. I heard you. I hung up. My dad was stable by then, still in the ICU, but the doctor said he was past the critical window. I found my mom in the cafeteria stirring a cup of cold tea. I told her I had an emergency at home, that I would be back as soon as I could. She looked at me, saw the look in my eyes, and she knew something was very wrong, but she didn't push. I drove those 3 hours home in complete silence. No radio, no podcasts, just this cold, hollow emptiness in my chest. It was the kind of rage that doesn't scream. It plans. First stop, the shelter. I walked in looking like absolute death. Hadn't showered in 3 days. Still wearing the same hoodie I had put on at 2 o'clock a.m., probably smelled like the hospital. I walked up to the front desk and told them I was looking for my dog. Golden Retriever, 6 years old. Probably brought in within the last 24 to 48 hours. Thank God for their 72-hour hold policy. Thank God they had him. The volunteer led me to the back. It was loud, dogs barking, the smell of bleach and fear. He was in a kennel in the far back corner, pressed against the concrete wall, tail tucked between his legs, shaking. When he saw me, he started crying. That high-pitched whine dogs do when they are overwhelmed with relief. He threw himself against the gate. I started crying too, right there in the middle of the shelter, sobbing like a baby while my dog licked my face through the kennel bars. I fell to my knees. I promised him I would never let that happen again. The shelter workers had questions. Turns out my fiancée had listed herself as the owner on the surrender paperwork, but she couldn't produce any vet records or proof of ownership. The intake worker said something felt off about the whole thing, but they couldn't legally refuse the surrender without evidence. I showed them 6 years of vet bills in my name, his microchip registration, the original adoption contract from the breeder, photos of us together from 5 years ago. They released him to me immediately. They made a note in their system about the fraudulent surrender. They banned her from ever adopting from there. Second stop, my townhouse. My fiancée was at work. She wouldn't be home for another 3 hours. I walked through the place slowly, really looking at it for the first time in months. It wasn't my home anymore. It was hers. My comfortable leather sectional, gone, replaced with some white minimalist fabric sofa that looked like it belonged in a museum, not a living room. You couldn't sit on it without fear of staining it. My vintage movie posters, gone, replaced with generic abstract art that looked like gray paint splashes. My dog's bed, gone. His toys, gone. His food and water bowls had been swapped out for some designer ceramic set that she had apparently bought for show because there was no food or water in them. I went to our bedroom closet. Her side had expanded to take up probably 85% of the space. My clothes were crammed into one tiny section, while her designer bags, shoes, dresses, and coats dominated everything else. I counted 8 designer bags, 12 pairs of designer shoes, countless dresses with tags still on them. Most of it was new. Most of it was purchased after we moved in together. And with a sinking feeling, I realized most of it was probably charged to the emergency credit card I had added her to 6 months ago. I checked the banking app on my phone. My stomach dropped. I sat on the bed for about 10 minutes just thinking. My dog sat next to me, head on my lap, still trembling slightly. He wouldn't let me out of his sight. Then I made a decision. I found garbage bags in the kitchen, the nice thick black contractor ones. I went back to the bedroom. I packed every single piece of designer clothing she owned, every bag, Gucci, Prada, Louis Vuitton. Into the bag every shoe, the red bottoms, the boots. Into the bag every dress, every coat, every scarf. I didn't fold them, I didn't organize them. I just stuffed them in. It filled 9 bags total. I loaded them into my car. I drove to the Goodwill donation center about 20 minutes away. I watched the workers carry all 9 bags inside. I got a tax receipt. I even wrote assorted women's clothing in the description line. Back to the townhouse. I changed all the locks myself. I had learned basic locksmithing as a hobby in my 20s, one of those random skills that finally came in handy. I removed the old deadbolts. I installed the new ones. I tested everything twice. Then I went to the garage. I pulled my dog's real bed out from where she had stashed it behind some boxes. I brought it inside. I put it right in the middle of her side of the bedroom floor. I filled his bowls with fresh food and water from the bag of his food she had also thrown in the garage. Let him settle in, tail finally wagging again. She got home at 6:30 p.m. I heard her car pull up. I heard her footsteps on the walkway. I heard her key slide into the lock. Then confusion as it didn't turn. Then jiggling. Then knocking. Then banging. What the actual? Open the door, why isn't my key working? I waited a full 2 minutes before opening it, just sitting on the couch letting her stew, letting her panic. When I finally opened the door, her face went through about 6 different emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, relief, annoyance, then absolute horror when she looked past me and saw my dog sitting in the hallway behind me. Why doesn't my key work, and why is that dog back? I told you I handled it. I specifically came back to handle you, I said. My voice was calm, scarily calm. Come look at something. I turned and walked to the bedroom. She followed, still talking, still trying to control the narrative. I do not understand why you are being weird about this. It is just a dog. We can get a better one. Something that doesn't shed everywhere. Something small and cute that actually matches the aesthetic of the house. She stopped dead in the bedroom doorway. She stared at the empty closet. Her side was bare, just empty hangers swinging slightly. My side was neatly arranged. 3 seconds of silence. The room felt vacuum sealed. Where are my clothes? What did you do with my clothes? Donated them. You what? Donated them. The clutter was ruining my aesthetic. She stared at me like I had grown a second head. Her mouth opened and closed. Those were designer. I had Gucci in there. I had Prada. That is thousands of dollars. And I had a dog. Had being the operative word until you decided to give him away without asking me. It is a dog. You can get another dog. He has been with me for 6 years. He is family. Those clothes have been with you for what? 6 months. And most of them were bought with my credit card anyway. So technically I just donated my own stuff. She lost it. Full meltdown mode, screaming, crying, throwing things. She grabbed a lamp off the nightstand and hurled it at the wall. It shattered. The shard missed my head by about 2 feet. My dog started barking, positioning himself between me and her, defending me, even after she had thrown him away. I am calling the cops. You stole my property. That is theft. Go ahead, call them. She did, and honestly I was glad. I wanted a police report. The cops showed up about 20 minutes later. 2 officers, a male and a female. My ex met them at the door, mascara running down her face, doing the whole "he is abusive, he is crazy" act while gesturing wildly at me. I stayed calm. I sat on the couch. I showed them the deed to the house, my name only. I explained we weren't married. She had no legal claim to the residence. I showed them the shelter paperwork where she falsely claimed ownership of my dog. I showed them the credit card statements proving I paid for the items she was claiming were stolen. The female officer looked at the shelter paperwork for a long time. She looked at the dog. She looked at my ex. Ma'am, did you surrender this dog to a shelter knowing it wasn't your property? My ex's story suddenly got very confused. I thought we were sharing the dog. I didn't realize the paperwork required actual ownership. I just wanted a clean house. The cops told her she could collect her remaining belongings, toiletries, books, non-disputed items, with a civil standby present. But the clothing issue, that would have to be handled in civil court. They recommended she leave for the night and find somewhere else to stay to avoid a domestic disturbance charge. Where am I supposed to go? This was my home. Ma'am, your name isn't on any documentation for this property. You will need to make other arrangements. She left with 2 suitcases full of bathroom stuff and some random books. Before she walked out, she ripped the engagement ring off her finger and threw it at my face. I caught it one-handed. Nice reflexes, the male officer said under his breath. After she was gone, I sat on my couch with my dog pressed against my side. We sat there for an hour just breathing, listening to the silence. Then I called my mom to tell her I would be back at the hospital tomorrow. I know some people will say I went too far. Maybe I did, but she disposed of my family while I was watching my father code on a hospital bed. She didn't ask. She didn't discuss it. She just decided her aesthetic was more important than a living creature who had been with me through everything. The clothes are just things. She could take me to small claims court over them. I will pay whatever the judgment is. Worth every cent to see her face when she realized her stuff was gone the same way my boy was supposed to be gone. Update 1. The escalation, 6 days later. Things have gotten messy, but I am holding the line. First, the good. My dad is out of the ICU. He is ornery and demanding better food, which the nurses say is a great sign. My mom is finally sleeping more than 2 hours at a time. I have been bringing the dog to visit. He is a certified therapy dog, which I forgot to mention. The nurses love him. Now the mess. My ex showed up at my townhouse 3 days ago with her mother. I wasn't there. I was at the hospital. But my neighbor has a Ring camera pointed at the street. Her mother is a piece of work. She never liked me. Thought I wasn't ambitious enough for her daughter. Thought my townhouse was cute but small. In the video, she is standing on my porch screaming about how I humiliated her baby and how I am going to pay for this. My ex is doing the tearful victim routine beside her, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Then, and I had to watch this part 3 times to believe it, her mother pulls out a credit card and starts trying to jimmy my lock on camera. She is trying to break in. My neighbor called me immediately. I called the cops. They arrived while the 2 of them were still on my porch. Trespassing warning issued to both of them, told not to return. Her mother is defense. He stole my daughter's belongings. We were just trying to retrieve them. The cop asked if she had receipts proving ownership. She did not. The cop asked if she had a key. She did not. The cop asked if she would like to be arrested for attempted breaking and entering. She did not. But that is not even the best part. My ex has apparently been running a full PR campaign against me, telling anyone who will listen that I kicked her out with nothing while my father was dying, that I am an animal hoarder who chose a flea-ridden mutt over her, that I destroyed over $40,000 in designer clothes out of spite. 40,000. I laughed out loud when a mutual friend told me that number. The credit card statements show maybe $9 grand total in designer purchases, and more than half of that was on my emergency card after we got engaged. Speaking of that credit card, here is where I need to vent. I canceled it the same day I cleaned out the closet, but she had already run it up during the days I was at the hospital. Charges made while my father was literally being resuscitated in the ER. $647 at a designer consignment shop, $412 at a high-end shoe store, $189 at a spa, $95 at a fancy restaurant. While I was watching doctors try to restart my father's heart, she was getting a pedicure. This is called financial infidelity. Shutterstock Explore spending money secretly in a way that harms the relationship. It is a form of abuse. I disputed all the charges as unauthorized. The credit card company is investigating. In the meantime, I am technically on the hook for the balance unless they rule in my favor. She also tried to get into my house yesterday while I was at work. I know because my neighbor texted me a photo of her car in my driveway. By the time I got home, she was gone, but there were fresh scratch marks around the back door lock. Someone had been trying to pick it or force it. I have now installed cameras on every entrance, added a motion sensor light to the back. I started documenting everything for a potential restraining order. Some mutual friends have reached out asking for my side of the story. I kept it simple. She gave my dog to a shelter while I was at my father's deathbed. I ended the relationship. Most people get it immediately. A few have been weird about it. Well, didn't you overreact a little? Those people are no longer getting responses from me. Update 2. The victory, 13 days later. Final update. I am done giving this situation space in my brain. Let us start with the wins. The credit card company completed their investigation and ruled entirely in my favor. All the charges she made during the week of my dad is hospitalization were reversed as unauthorized. Better yet, and I didn't even know this was a thing, they flagged her for credit fraud. Apparently, when you add someone as an authorized user for emergencies only, and they instead go on a shopping spree while you are dealing with a medical crisis, that is fraud. She disputed the reversal, claiming we were engaged and she had implied permission. They asked her for documentation. She couldn't provide any, so now she has been flagged. Good luck getting approved for anything better than a secured credit card for the next 7 years. Consequences. Next, the small claims court case. Yeah, she actually took me to court for the clothes, hired a lawyer and everything. We are talking maybe 8 or 9 grand in clothes. And she hired a lawyer whose retainer alone was probably 2 grand. The hearing was last Tuesday. I represented myself because, honestly, what was the worst that could happen? A judgment for 9 grand that I would pay and move on. I showed up with documentation, screenshots of her text message telling me she gave the dog to the shelter because he ruined her aesthetic. The shelter is intake form showing she falsely claimed ownership. 6 years of vet records proving the dog was mine. Microchip registration. Credit card statements showing I paid for most of the clothes she was suing for. The Ring camera footage of her mother trying to break into my house. Her lawyer argued the clothes were gifts and therefore her property, and that I committed conversion, civil theft, by donating them without permission. My argument was simpler. She committed conversion first by surrendering my dog, my property, to a shelter without permission. I responded in kind. The judge looked at her, looked at me, looked at the shelter paperwork, looked at the text message about the aesthetic. His ruling, both parties committed conversion of roughly equivalent value. Damages cancel out, case dismissed. No one gets anything, but here is the thing, she had to pay her lawyer, I didn't. So she spent probably 3 grand in legal fees to get absolutely nothing while I spent 4 hours in a courthouse and the cost of parking. After the hearing, she tried to talk to me in the parking lot. Her mother was there too, which was my cue to keep walking. I hope you are happy, my ex said. You ruined my life over a dog. I stopped. I looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time since this started. She looked smaller, less intimidating. Just a person who made terrible choices and couldn't understand why there were consequences. You tried to get rid of my family while I was watching my dad die. You didn't ask. You didn't discuss it. You decided your aesthetic mattered more than a living creature. Then you maxed out my credit card while my father was coding in the ER. Then you tried to break into my house. You didn't ruin your life. You just finally faced consequences. Her mother started in. It is a dog. You can get another dog. You cannot get another relationship. Ma'am, I said, I do not want another relationship like this. That is the whole point. I got in my car and drove away. Haven't seen or spoken to either of them since. The fallout has been interesting. About half our mutual friends quietly stopped talking to her after hearing both sides. 2 of her coworkers reached out to people in my circle, and when they heard about the dog thing, they stopped inviting her to afterwork stuff. She is apparently eating lunch alone in her car now. This is what happens when the mask slips. This is narcissistic collapse, when the false image they have built is destroyed by the truth. My dad had his bypass surgery a week ago. It went well, better than expected actually. He is recovering at home now. My mom has been incredible. When I finally told her the full story about my ex, her exact words were, I never liked her anyway, too worried about appearances, not enough about substance. Cool. Would have been nice to know that before I proposed, Mom. The townhouse feels like mine again. I moved my leather sectional back into the living room, took down the gray art, put my movie posters back up. My dog's bed is in its proper place by the window where he can watch squirrels. His toys are everywhere and I genuinely do not care about the mess. I have started seeing a therapist, partly for the trauma of my dad's heart attack. Partly to figure out how I ended up in a relationship where someone slowly took over my entire existence, and I just let it happen. There is work to do there. I ignored a lot of red flags because she was attractive and confident, and I was lonely after my divorce. Classic mistake. The engagement ring sold for $3,200 to a jewelry resale place. Not what I paid, but better than nothing. I am putting that money toward a trip for me and my dad once he is fully recovered. He has always wanted to see the coast. Now I have the money and the time. I know some people wanted a bigger ending, wanted her to lose her job, get publicly humiliated, have some dramatic breakdown. But real life doesn't work that way. She lost the relationship, lost her wardrobe, got flagged for credit fraud, paid a lawyer to get nothing, and lost about half her social circle when the truth came out. That is consequence enough. She is not going to have some big moment of realization where she understands what she did wrong. She is going to keep telling herself she was the victim. She is going to keep projecting thriving on social media while eating lunch alone. She is going to keep being exactly who she always was, someone who prioritizes aesthetics over substance, image over reality, things over people, and I am going to keep moving forward. My dog is currently asleep on the couch next to me, snoring so loud it is almost impressive. He has gained back the weight he lost during his 3 days at the shelter. He still follows me everywhere, still won't let me out of his sight for long. I am okay with that. That is the ending, not dramatic, not cinematic, just life. My dad is alive. My dog is home. My house is mine. That is all I wanted, and that is what I have. Thanks for reading. Going to go throw a tennis ball in the backyard now. If you think I made the right move by donating her clothes, hit the subscribe button. We talk about self-respect and boundaries here on Story Sparks. Thanks for watching.